Amy Carter asked her husband, Ryan. The kids were asleep, the lights were down, and they were in bed together. Amy had opened a private web browser to explore some new options. Ryan was a bit unsure about this new interest of his wife. They had been married for 12 years, and Amy had never shown any curiosity about this before. In fact, in the past, she had even made negative comments about it. A few weeks ago, everything changed. After a lunch with her sister, Amy asked Ryan what he liked to watch. During their conversation, her sister Jen had mentioned how women might enjoy some of the same things. The idea surprised Amy. She had never thought about it like that. Ryan was careful in his answer, but Amy was sincere. She really wanted to know what kinds of shows her husband liked, seemingly trying to learn more for herself. The impact on their relationship turned out to be positive. At first, Amy was a little shy and hesitant, but when Ryan touched her, he realized that this new exploration was awakening something in her. She would watch, completely focused on the screen, and respond to his touch more eagerly. In fact, over the past couple of weeks, if Ryan took too long to start, Amy would take charge and find her own way to enjoy herself. It wasn't that their marriage was lacking. Even with their busy lives and 2 kids, they managed to connect 2 to 3 times a week. Amy enjoyed giving and receiving affection, and they had a nice variety in their moments together, even dressing up for special times. Ryan knew many couples struggled more than they did, and he was thankful for their connection. But since Amy discovered this new interest, they were spending even more intimate time together. She was more vocal, more engaged, and more likely to take the lead. Ryan was amazed by her new openness. He had always thought she never wanted to explore on her own. He had even encouraged her before, but this was a welcome surprise. Ryan had always shared with his wife, Amy, that he preferred watching more realistic videos, ones that featured everyday people instead of professionally made content. Amy didn't seem to mind, and often joined him in viewing these types of videos. They typically involved real couples or people engaging in intimate moments that felt spontaneous or slightly daring. That night, Amy sat on the couch, watching a video on her laptop. It showed a middle-aged woman and a man in what appeared to be a private bedroom. The video had a casual feel to it, almost as if it had been recorded without much planning. Amy watched the scene, slightly frustrated when the video ended abruptly. "Just when it was getting interesting," she muttered, annoyed. She began scrolling through other videos listed on the screen, reading some of the titles aloud. Each one seemed to highlight different themes, and as she read the titles, her curiosity piqued. One particular title caused her to pause and make a face. "What's a glory hole?" she asked, genuinely confused. Ryan, slightly caught off guard, hesitated before explaining. "It's a setup where there's a small hole in a wall, usually in private places like booths or bathrooms where people, interact without seeing each other." He tried to keep the explanation as neutral as possible. Amy laughed in disbelief. "Seriously? That sounds so weird. Why would anyone do that?" She shook her head, clearly amused but also puzzled by the idea. Ryan smiled slightly, realizing that they probably wouldn't be exploring that type of video together. Before he could say more, Amy had already moved on to another video, settling back into her seat to watch the next one. Now was definitely not the time to argue about a movie. The real point here wasn't that Ryan could watch whatever he liked. It was about how it got his wife excited by what they were seeing together. That night, Amy was so moved by the film that she eventually told Ryan they needed to be close. Ryan, understanding what she wanted, happily agreed. The Carters were a typical family living in the suburbs. They met in college, dated for a few years, and then got married. Ryan worked as an electrical engineer and earned a good salary. Amy was an ICU nurse and also did well with her job, often picking up extra shifts for some fun money. After 12 years of marriage, they had 2 children, a 10-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl. Despite their busy lives, Ryan and Amy made sure to have regular date nights. Thankfully, the kids could stay with their grandparents, who loved having them, making it easy for the couple to escape for a night to reconnect. Every few months, they would even take short weekend trips together. At 36 years old, Amy was still the kind of woman who attracted attention at social events. Her blonde curls reached just past her shoulders, and her blue eyes sparkled with fun. She had a curvy yet athletic build, spending at least 3 days a week at the gym and running a few miles 2 to 3 times a week. Amy was determined to take care of her body after having kids, working hard to get back in shape. She often struggled with a few extra pounds that seemed to appear every weekend, but Ryan always reassured her that he never noticed. 2 years after their second child, Amy had cosmetic surgery. Though she was open about the surgery, she preferred to keep the details about the implants to herself, and thanks to her skilled doctor, no one could tell the difference. Ryan, 2 years older than Amy at 38, stood just under 6 feet tall, making him noticeably taller than her. While Amy sometimes wore heels to seem taller, Ryan had a wiry build and stayed in good shape too, spending time at the gym. His hair was a sandy color and very curly, but he kept it short to manage the curls. His eyes were blue, so it was clear he couldn't deny that both of his children had blonde hair, curly locks, and blue eyes just like him. Ryan noticed that while he felt happy with life, Amy seemed a little restless lately. He didn't think it was a midlife crisis, but he could tell she was looking for something more. She had told him that she felt the urge to expand their family. They had talked many times about having one more child, but for now, Amy decided to continue using birth control. Still, Ryan assured her she could stop whenever she felt ready. One thing Ryan recognized was Amy's desire to explore new experiences and push herself in different ways. He would never complain about his in-laws. They were kind, welcoming, and great with the kids. However, he did notice they held very traditional views, suggesting that Amy had a strict upbringing. She had only a couple of boyfriends before meeting Ryan in college, leaving her with a limited history when it came to relationships. He thought that Amy's new interest in exploring her desires was part of her journey to find herself. Amy was always eager to try new things and have new adventures. Recently, she developed a love for different foods and wanted to try all kinds of activities, from concerts and plays to axe throwing and even skydiving. While she hadn't been as adventurous in their intimate life, Ryan felt that her recent explorations were helping her be more open-minded in that area too. A couple of years ago, the Carters took up hiking. They found it was not just a way to enjoy nature, but it also allowed them to spend quality time together. As they walked for miles, they could chat about anything that crossed their minds. This time together helped to strengthen their bond. Hiking became such an important part of their lives that the couple made an effort to go together most months. Since they had already tried many of the best local trails for day hikes, they began going on short, overnight trips where they would drive a few hours away, stay in a cozy cabin or a tiny home, and hike before returning home. Sometimes they would spend a weekend away, enjoying a nice dinner and exploring a new hiking trail the next day before heading back home. One weekend in April, Amy and Ryan waved goodbye to the kids at Grandma's house and set off for a trip that was about 3 hours away. Amy was especially excited because they had rented a small cabin on a mountain that had an amazing view of the sunset over the valley. The area was full of popular trails that the couple had never tried before. They chose a longer one for Saturday and a shorter one for Sunday. Their plan was to have a picnic while watching the sunset on Friday, tackle the longer hike on Saturday, return to the cabin to freshen up, and then drive half an hour to a nearby city for dinner at a nice restaurant. After spending Saturday night in the cabin, they would pack up Sunday morning, do the shorter hike, and then head home. The drive went smoothly, and soon they were sitting on a blanket, enjoying a view that was just as beautiful as the brochure had promised. The couple snacked on cheese, meats, and bread while sipping sparkling juice as the sun slowly set. Ryan felt very aware of Amy next to him. Without thinking, he put his arm around her. When she didn't push him away, he playfully touched her shoulder. Amy smiled and cuddled closer as the air began to cool with the sunset. She turned her face to him, and they shared a gentle kiss. The soft kiss quickly grew more passionate as Amy responded with warmth. "Do you want to go inside?" Ryan asked quietly. While the view was stunning, there were other tiny homes nearby, and they weren't completely alone. Some of the other cabins had cars parked outside, so it was possible others could see them if they looked. Amy glanced around, a playful smile on her face. "Only if you want to," she whispered. "It's getting dark. If anyone sees us, they must really want to." "Is that so bad?" She playfully adjusted her dress, sharing a warm moment with Ryan under the colors of the fading sunset. Ryan kissed her sweetly, and soon they were nestled on the blanket, the night sky watching over them. Saturday's hike was a good challenge, but enjoyable. Amy and Ryan spent 6 hours enjoying the spring leaves, the fresh smells, and the peaceful sounds of the wind and their laughter. They found a few amazing spots to overlook the scenery and came across a lovely waterfall. Most importantly, they cherished their time together. They talked about work, their friends, and their families. They discussed kids, school activities, and the ups and downs that came with learning. They shared funny stories and little bits of their lives that made them smile. Ryan loved the outdoors, but what he enjoyed the most was the deep bond he got to experience with this wonderful woman. That evening, they tidied up and took turns in the small home, which was a bit tricky, but turned out to be fun. Ryan wore nice pants and a button-up shirt. Amy looked beautiful in a stylish dress and high heels. As they drove to the restaurant, they passed through the countryside and entered a run-down town near their destination. Ryan chuckled as he realized that Google Maps had taken them through a less desirable area. The town was filled with pawn shops, payday loan shops, and liquor stores. The gas stations looked like places where you would slide money under thick glass to pay. Thankfully, they had filled up the car before arriving at the small home. Amy laughed as she pointed out a worn building with adult books lit up in bright colors. "Too bad we have a reservation," she joked. "We could have stopped there first." There were only a couple of cars in the parking lot, even for a Saturday night. "I guess reading isn't popular tonight," she added with a grin. Before long, the small town turned into the lively city, and Amy and Ryan found themselves in a refreshed part of downtown. Many old buildings had been turned into restaurants, bars, and unique shops. The whole area had a trendy vibe. Ryan felt unsure that the restaurant they picked would live up to its look. After all, they offered artisanal ice. But the drink menu was impressive, featuring a bar with a rolling ladder like in a library to reach high shelves. Though the place felt a bit fancy for him, he was pleased that the food was delicious and the menu had plenty to choose from. The staff might not have been the warmest, but overall, it was a fantastic experience, easily one of the best restaurants they had visited. "I don't think I'm cool enough to eat here," Ryan joked after their meal. "But I've got to say, the food was amazing. I could really see going back there again." Amy agreed enthusiastically. "Absolutely. And there were so many more dishes on the menu that I'd love to try. The house drinks were great, too." Indeed, Amy had enjoyed a few drinks and was in a good mood. On the drive back to their cozy home, she sat close to Ryan in her seat. She playfully rested her hand on his lap while he drove. Ryan smiled, knowing that their time at home together would be fun. As they passed the adult bookstore, they noticed the parking lot was much busier, with many cars outside. "Well, look at that," Ryan said. "I guess a lot of people are interested in reading after all." Amy laughed. "What are people doing there so late?" Ryan was surprised. Did Amy not know what those places offered? "Babe," he explained, "there probably aren't many books. Adult stores sell toys, massage oils, and maybe some outfits, but most folks go to watch movies. They might have a little movie area or booths where you pick out videos." Amy looked at him with wide eyes as they drove past. "But why? Why would anyone pay to watch movies there when they can find so much online?" Ryan chose his words carefully. "Well, online movies weren't always available. You used to have to buy them. I think some people still enjoy going out for it. But some guys like to enjoy themselves while watching those movies in booths. It's a bit of an adventure, I guess, and some spots even have hidden areas." Amy frowned. "Hidden areas? Like from those movies we talked about?" she asked. "Is that real or just something for shows?" Ryan nodded. "Yes, it exists." "Wow," she said, sounding thoughtful. She seemed lost in her thoughts, but Ryan noticed she kept her hand on his lap the rest of the drive home. One thing was clear. Ryan was right about them having a lot of fun back at their cozy home, as Amy was full of energy. As soon as they got there, she tossed her dress aside, revealing a daring little outfit that would have caught anyone's attention. Ryan and Amy were relaxing together after a long day, enjoying each other's company. As they shared a quiet moment, Ryan noticed his wife seemed more affectionate than usual, smiling warmly at him. He wondered what had sparked her playful mood. Maybe it was the fun day they had spent together, the relaxed atmosphere, or simply the closeness they were feeling. As Ryan began to change out of his shirt, Amy gave him a teasing look, clearly wanting to be close. Her smile was playful, and it was obvious she was in a good mood. Ryan was pleasantly surprised by her enthusiasm, and couldn't help but appreciate her affectionate gestures. "What's gotten into you tonight?" he asked with a chuckle. "You seem extra happy. Not that I'm complaining." Amy didn't answer with words, but her warm gaze and laughter said enough. She was simply enjoying the moment. Ryan thought back to the day they'd had, reflecting on how they'd passed an adult store earlier while out running errands. "You know," he said, half joking, "I wonder if seeing that store made you curious about it. Maybe you're imagining what it'd be like to go in there, see what's inside." He smiled, waiting for her reaction. Amy paused, looked at him thoughtfully, then laughed. She didn't say much, but her smile showed she was amused by the idea. Ryan decided to keep going, encouraged by her playful mood. "I bet if we went inside, you'd be the most stylish, confident woman in there. People would probably notice how different you are, classy, out of place, but in a fun way. It'd definitely be interesting." Amy giggled again, clearly enjoying the light-hearted conversation. Ryan could tell she was having fun with the idea, even if it was just a silly fantasy they were sharing. The two of them continued to enjoy their time together, laughing and relaxing, the day's adventures behind them as they basked in the easy, playful mood they had created. Ryan and Amy were spending a quiet evening together, enjoying each other's company and a light-hearted conversation. As they talked, Ryan noticed Amy seemed unusually playful, her mood bright and full of energy. They had shared a great day, and Ryan couldn't help but wonder what had sparked this extra bit of excitement in her. They had passed an adult store earlier while out, and Ryan teased her about it. "Do you think maybe passing that store made you curious?" he joked with a grin, trying to keep the conversation fun. "You know, going inside, seeing what it's all about?" Amy laughed, clearly entertained by the playful suggestion. Ryan could tell she was in a good mood, enjoying the teasing. He decided to keep it going. "I can just imagine us walking into a place like that, everyone noticing you, the classiest person in there." She giggled again, enjoying the light banter, but didn't say much in response. The two continued to share a few more jokes, relaxed and comfortable in each other's company. As the evening wore on, they cuddled close, their conversation turning to memories and shared experiences. The closeness between them felt natural, a reflection of the bond they had built over the years. Later that week, as they settled back into their normal routine at home, Ryan noticed that Amy seemed more curious about some of the videos they occasionally watched together. Though the videos weren't something they focused on much, it was clear Amy had a playful interest in some of the themes they had joked about earlier. It became a little inside joke between them, a light-hearted continuation of their fun, shared moments. The couple's relationship remained strong, and their shared laughter and mutual understanding brought them even closer. It wasn't about the specifics of the videos or the jokes. It was about the connection they shared and the way they made each other feel comfortable and happy no matter what they were doing. While she usually commented on adult content from time to time, there was something about specific videos that brought out a different side of her. She would often express opinions about the women in the videos, commenting on various aspects of what she saw. It amused him that his wife, Amy, shared similar tastes to his when it came to selecting these videos. She didn't seem interested in the overly staged ones featuring young actors in flashy settings. Instead, Amy preferred videos that featured real women in more everyday situations. The Carters took their marriage vows very seriously. Neither of them had ever been with anyone else, nor had they ever thought about it. Still, the idea of sharing playful fantasies about anonymous encounters was intriguing to both of them. They found that talking about these subjects became a fun part of their time together at home. The thrill of imagining a respectable wife like Amy enjoying a secret experience was quite exciting and crept into their conversations. This playful talk also matched Amy's wishes to explore new sides of herself. As April and May went by, June approached, and the couple discussed taking another weekend hiking trip. Instead of mentioning the adult store that lingered in their minds, they chose to focus on planning their getaway. They decided to return to the tiny home community they had enjoyed before. They found the tiny home pleasant, were eager to explore more hiking trails, and loved the local restaurant enough to dine there again. After agreeing, they made a reservation for a tiny home for the last weekend in June and booked a dinner for Saturday night, pretending this trip was just like any other hiking adventure. There was no discussion about the adult store. Even their usual playful conversations were notably missing any mention of those fantasies. Before long, Ryan and Amy were saying goodbye to their kids and heading to the car for their trip. During the drive, their conversation was light, filled with thoughts about the trails they would hike and the meals they would enjoy. Each of them carefully avoided talking about the adult store or any potential visit to it. Amy and Ryan both felt a little uneasy. They weren't sure what the other was thinking, and they didn't want to hurt each other's feelings by bringing it up. So instead, they tried to ignore the situation. That Friday evening was rainy, which meant they wouldn't get to see a nice sunset like they had on their first trip. They joked around, enjoyed some drinks, and then went back to their cozy home for the night, ending it with some sweet moments together. The next day was another beautiful hike. The views were amazing. They found all kinds of mushrooms and plants, and the waterfalls were flowing well because of the recent rain. However, their conversation during the hike felt a little forced. Usually they would chat freely about anything, but this time both were secretly thinking about the adult store they would pass later that night. They avoided the topic, which led to some unusual silence between them. After their hike, they returned to their small home to freshen up. Ryan dressed in khaki pants and a button-up shirt, while Amy chose a pretty dress and heels. Ryan genuinely complimented her, saying, "You look incredible. Any man would be lucky to know you." Amy blushed a little and said, "Thank you." The drive to the restaurant was almost quiet. As they passed by the adult store in a rundown area, Ryan noticed, "Not much business tonight." Amy only nodded in response. Thankfully, the restaurant was just as good as their first visit, maybe even better. Every dish was more delicious than the last, and the staff was friendlier this time. Ryan enjoyed tasting a new Irish whiskey, while Amy savored some of the house cocktails. After dinner, when Ryan paid the bill, they walked back to their car. Ryan opened the door for Amy, who was careful to sit without being awkward in her short dress. Soon they were driving back to their tiny home. Suddenly, Amy said, "I wonder if that store will be busier now." That was it. She finally mentioned it. "Maybe," Ryan replied casually. "Are you thinking about stopping to take a look?" Uh-oh, he thought to himself, feeling like he had pushed too far. Instead of giving a clear answer, Amy jokingly replied, "Of course. Of course, I was curious about what the excitement was all about, but only if it wasn't too crowded." "Oh," Ryan said simply, "I thought you'd never want to be in a place like that. You're full of surprises." Amy chuckled lightly, her laughter joyful. The store was just a few minutes away. As he drove, Ryan thought about the situation. Was Amy just joking? Surely she thought he would just drive back to their cozy home where they could enjoy a nice evening together. Right? Soon, the bright green and pink sign appeared. Ryan's heart raced as he glanced at his wife. Her expression was hard to read as she stared straight ahead, not realizing they were approaching the store. He took a deep breath, swallowed, and turned on his left signal while pressing the brakes. The parking lot was less crowded than their last visit, with about 6 or 8 cars parked. The streets were nearly empty in the quiet town on a Saturday night, so the couple didn't have to deal with much traffic. Ryan made the turn, parked in a spot away from the others. This was it. Amy raised an eyebrow and looked at him. "Are you really going to go inside?" she asked, her voice calm but with a hint of surprise. "I was joking earlier. I thought you knew that. You really think I'm going to go into some strange store out here? To do what?" Ryan paused before answering, then smiled. "I'm not expecting you to do anything, love," he said carefully. "I'm just giving you a choice." He noticed her frown, but continued. "Look, there's no point in pretending. You're curious about this, and so am I. We've thought about it and talked about it. Now we're here. If you want to check it out, here's your chance." Amy didn't look convinced. "Honey, that was all just fun in our minds," she replied. "It's one thing to imagine or talk about it. It's another to actually go into a place like this. What would people think?" Ryan saw his moment. "Look, Amy," he said gently, Who cares what others think? This is about us. It's our decision, not anyone else's. Plus, we're far from home in a small town. Nobody here knows us. She looked unsure, ready to respond when he added, I love you so much. I value you more than anyone else. I won't push you inside if you're really not interested. We can leave now, head back home, and not mention this again. Amy seemed a bit more at ease with his words, so Ryan continued. But here's the thing. You've been about pushing your boundaries for a while now, Ryan said, trying to keep his voice calm. So let's see if this is something you'd really want to explore. We don't have to do anything you're uncomfortable with. We can just go in, take a look, and leave if it doesn't feel right. He paused, giving her time to think. If we at least go in, you won't have any doubts or wonder about it later. But the choice is yours. Whether we go inside, how long we stay, and what we do, if anything. Okay, Amy said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Okay, what? Ryan asked gently. Okay, let's go in and take a look around, she replied, sounding both nervous and determined. Ryan felt a mix of excitement and anxiety wash over him. He wasn't sure what to expect either, but he tried to keep his emotions in check. He got out of the car, walked around, and opened the door for Amy. Hand in hand, they made their way to the store's entrance. The inside of the store was exactly what Ryan had imagined. Dim fluorescent lights flickered overhead, and neon signs marked different sections like movies, toys, and lingerie. The shelves were painted in a faded pink, and the air smelled faintly of stale cigarettes, a lingering scent despite the smoking ban in businesses. They passed by a display counter where a tired-looking clerk in his 50s stood. His long, unkempt hair and pale complexion made it clear that he didn't spend much time outdoors. His eyes perked up when he saw Amy, but he only glanced briefly at their IDs before greeting them in a gravelly voice. Evening, folks. Let me know if you need any help. Ryan nodded politely, leading Amy further into the store. There were a few other customers lingering around, and it was clear that Amy's presence hadn't gone unnoticed. Each time Ryan glanced up, he saw at least one of them watching her as they wandered through the aisles. As they moved through the store, Amy's discomfort became more apparent. She stayed close to Ryan, her posture tense. Ryan had hoped this might feel exciting or adventurous, but instead it felt awkward and forced. Whatever he had imagined wasn't quite matching up with the reality of the moment. After a few awkward minutes, Ryan realized that this was much more enjoyable as a daydream than in real life. Just as he was about to suggest they leave, they reached the end of an aisle and saw a hallway lit with pink neon lights that said, Arcade. Is that the place for the movies? Amy asked quietly. Ryan nodded. I think so. Do you want to check it out? Amy hesitated for a moment, but then straightened her back. Why not? It wouldn't make sense to pass it up, right? They walked into the hallway where a sign welcomed them. No loitering in the arcade area. All booths operate on tokens. If you aren't paying, you must leave the arcade. No exceptions. Ryan looked at Amy. I guess I need to get some tokens then? She nodded, so he went back to the front of the store. Need some tokens? The clerk asked with a rough voice. When Ryan nodded, the clerk continued. Tokens are $1 each. 1 token gives you 5 minutes of video time. Okay, Ryan said. I'll take $20 worth. All right, the clerk replied. He processed Ryan's card and counted out the tokens. You and your lady are going to watch some movies, huh? He asked as he finished counting. Yes, we thought we'd check it out, Ryan said. The clerk handed him the tokens with a smile. You might want to use booths 3 or 6. They have a bit more space for you too. Ryan took the tokens, and the clerk added, Make sure to lock the door behind you so no one walks in. Just a heads up, you shouldn't be doing anything too private in the arcade. He leaned in closer and whispered, I have to tell you that. But if your door is locked, no one will know what you're up to. Ryan felt embarrassed and said, thanks for your help. Enjoy your time, the clerk said cheerfully as Ryan walked away quickly. Ryan found Amy fidgeting at the back of the store, and they walked down the dimly lit hallway with off-white floors like the rest of the store to a turn. After that turn, they saw numbered doors on both sides of the hall, each with a red light above it. Right now, doors 1, 5, and 6 were lit. Since those doors were closed while the others were open, it was easy to guess that those booths were taken. I guess we can pick any booth, Amy said as she moved toward door number 7, but Ryan stopped her. The clerk mentioned that booths 3 and 6 were a bit bigger. Maybe those are better for us? Ryan suggested. Amy shrugged. Okay, that makes sense, Amy replied, nodding in agreement. Since booth 6 was already occupied, Ryan and Amy moved into booth 3. The small room had a bench, a TV screen that dimly lit the space, and a machine with a coin slot and a sign next to it that read, Tokens Only. 1 token = 5 minutes video play. The room was basic, with just a trash can and a roll of paper towels on the side. Ryan inserted a token into the machine and the screen came to life, showing a video already in progress. The timer on the machine counted down from 5 minutes, so Ryan added more tokens until they had about 40 minutes to watch. Amy sat down on the bench, glancing at the screen. What else is on? She asked. Ryan noticed there were buttons to change the channels. They flipped through a few different videos before settling on one. The scene wasn't anything remarkable, just 2 people interacting casually. With their selection made, Ryan sat down next to Amy, and they watched in silence for a while. After a minute or so, Ryan decided it was time to focus more on their own experience than the video. He gently placed his hand on Amy's cheek, guiding her in for a kiss. She smiled at him, and they shared a quiet moment together. As they kissed, Ryan's hand rested on her arm, moving to her shoulder. After a few moments, Ryan noticed Amy shifting slightly on the bench, clearly feeling the tension of the situation. He rested his hand on her leg, gently rubbing her knee, sharing a quiet smile with her. Amy leaned in with a grin and whispered, I've been feeling a bit bold tonight. Ryan chuckled, appreciating the lightness of the moment, and they both relaxed into the situation, enjoying the adventure together in their own way. They spent the rest of the time talking and laughing softly, deciding that sometimes the best part of stepping outside of your comfort zone was sharing the experience with someone you love. When they left the store, hand in hand, Ryan and Amy both knew it had been about more than just curiosity. It was about trying something new together, even if it was a little out of the ordinary. Ryan and Amy were enjoying a quiet moment together in the small booth, just spending time close to one another. Ryan kissed her gently, trying to stay in the moment. As they shared the kiss, Amy responded with warmth, but after a while she leaned back, relaxing into the moment. Ryan, trying to keep the playful atmosphere, adjusted her dress slightly, brushing her arm softly as they continued to enjoy the closeness. Amy smiled at him, clearly comfortable with their quiet time together. The two shared a calm and intimate moment, simply being close to one another, letting the rest of the world slip away for a little while. Suddenly, Ryan noticed a dim light shining from the wall beside them, realizing that someone had entered the booth next to theirs. It took him a second to understand that there was a small hole in the wall between the 2 spaces, allowing light to pass through. It seemed like the person next door had turned on the TV in their booth, and the light was flickering through. Feeling a bit awkward but not wanting to disrupt the moment, Ryan leaned over and whispered to Amy, Someone's next to us. Amy's eyes widened for a moment, but she didn't move. Instead, she gave a small laugh and they continued to focus on each other, keeping things light. A soft sound came from Amy as she relaxed even more, clearly enjoying their shared connection. Ryan wrapped an arm around her to make sure she stayed steady, concerned she might slip from the bench as they both laughed softly, easing the tension. After a few moments, Amy breathed deeply, smiling. Wow, that was something, she said with a grin, catching her breath. Just then, a voice from the other side of the wall called out, That was amazing! Amy blushed slightly, pretending she didn't hear it. She playfully turned her attention back to Ryan, ready to focus on him, ignoring the interruption. Ryan was already smiling at her, and together they shared the rest of the moment with quiet laughter and gentle affection. The strange experience of the booth and the shared adventure became something they could both laugh about later, leaving the evening as just another memory of their time spent together. Ryan and Amy were in a small, dimly lit booth, the atmosphere quiet and slightly tense. For a moment, they were both focused on the situation at hand, with the seedy environment adding to the strangeness of the moment. Ryan's mind was occupied, his thoughts clouded by the odd surroundings and the tension between them. Suddenly, something caught Ryan's eye. Through a small hole in the wall, he noticed that someone on the other side had extended their hand into the booth. It wasn't something he had expected, and for a second, he was unsure how to react. His wife was close by, and the stranger's hand was only a short distance from them. Ryan cleared his throat, trying to make sense of the situation. We have some company," he said hesitantly, gesturing toward the hand. Amy looked up at him in surprise, her eyes widening as she realized what he was referring to. "What should I do?" she whispered, clearly uncertain. Ryan could see the confusion on her face, and he knew this was an unusual moment for both of them. He responded calmly, "It's up to you. What do you feel comfortable with?" Amy seemed torn, her eyes darting between Ryan and the situation at hand. "I don't know," she admitted, still unsure. She was caught between curiosity and hesitation. In that moment, Ryan realized they were at a turning point. They could simply leave and laugh about the strange experience, walking away with a quirky story to tell. No one would ever know what had happened, and their lives would return to normal. Or they could explore this unusual situation further, stepping into the unknown. He knew that whatever they decided, it was important they were both comfortable with it. After a pause, Ryan spoke gently. "It's okay to be curious, but you don't have to do anything that doesn't feel right." He offered a reassuring smile, giving Amy the space to make her own decision. Amy took a deep breath, clearly still weighing her options. "But we're married," she said softly, almost to herself. "This isn't something I ever thought we'd deal with." Ryan nodded, understanding her hesitation. He gave her a comforting look, knowing that whatever happened next, it would be something they would navigate together. The moment passed, and they decided to leave the booth. As they walked out, hand in hand, both knew this was a strange chapter in their shared adventure. It wasn't about what they did or didn't do. It was about their connection and the trust they had in each other to make the right choice. Ryan could see that Amy was conflicted, her uncertainty clear. Sensing her hesitation, he gently reassured her. "Why not? You're married. And I'm your husband. I'm giving you permission." When he saw she was about to protest, he quickly continued. "I didn't hear you say you didn't want to, just that you couldn't. I'm telling you that you can, if you want to." Amy looked up at him, clearly struggling with her feelings. "Are you sure? You won't be upset? I would never want to hurt you." Ryan slid off the bench and pulled her into a warm embrace. "I love you so much, and I promise I won't be mad or hurt. We've talked about this before, imagined it. I think you're amazing, and whatever you decide, it's okay." Amy seemed to relax a little, her expression softening. She gave him a gentle kiss and whispered, "Thank you." She took a step back, clearly still thinking it over, but then slowly moved closer to the situation at hand. After a pause, she glanced back at Ryan, flashing him a playful smile, then cautiously moved forward. The tension in the room was still there, but she seemed a bit more comfortable as she continued, exchanging glances with Ryan as if checking in with him. Ryan, expecting Amy to be hesitant at first, watched as she took her time, adjusting to the moment. He stood nearby, feeling a mix of emotions, unsure of what would happen next. But to his surprise, once Amy made up her mind, she seemed much more at ease. She quickly found her rhythm, fully engaging in the moment with confidence. The change in her was sudden, and Ryan could see that she was fully embracing the experience. It was clear that she had pushed her initial hesitation aside. Ryan stood up and watched, taking in the scene. It wasn't just the setting that stood out, but the way Amy carried herself, completely absorbed in the moment. He was struck by the intensity of her focus and felt a flood of emotions as he observed his wife, admiring her boldness. A few minutes passed before there was a sudden sound. 2 quick taps on the wall next to them. Ryan paused, his mind working to figure out what it meant, realizing only after a moment that this was a signal from the stranger on the other side. The strange circumstances had made this an unforgettable moment, but now it seemed like the experience was drawing to a close. Ryan and Amy exchanged a final look, both knowing that this strange chapter of their adventure had come to an end. What remained was their shared connection, stronger than ever through the experience they had navigated together. Amy's attention was entirely focused on the moment, so whether she heard the sound from the adjacent room or not was unclear. Ryan noticed the change in her expression, though, when she suddenly paused, her blue eyes widening in surprise. It seemed something had caught her off guard. She briefly coughed, looking startled, but quickly regained her composure, flashing Ryan a small, slightly awkward smile. When the interaction in the other booth ended, Amy stood up, looking a bit conflicted. She glanced at Ryan, her face showing concern. "Are we okay?" she asked quietly, unsure. "I hope I didn't mess anything up." Ryan responded by pulling her into a warm hug, speaking softly to reassure her. "We're absolutely fine," he said gently. "I encouraged you, remember? This was just part of the adventure we talked about." He gave her a loving look and continued, "I love you, and this was just us exploring something together. It's all okay." Amy's expression softened, her face filled with gratitude. She leaned in to kiss Ryan, and for a brief moment there was hesitation on his part. But he quickly brushed it aside, realizing how unnecessary it was. They shared a tender, reassuring kiss, and Ryan felt a wave of relief wash over him, knowing that their bond was intact. As they stood together, the room quiet around them, Ryan noticed a subtle movement out of the corner of his eye. It seemed someone else had entered the booth next to them. Amy glanced over, seeing what Ryan had noticed. "Oh," she said softly, surprised by the new presence. The situation had changed again, but this time Amy seemed more aware. She looked at Ryan, uncertain but calm, as they both shared a knowing glance. Ryan responded with a gentle nod, silently confirming that they were in control of their decisions, always focused on trust and mutual understanding. In that quiet moment, they both knew that whatever experiences they faced, they would face them together. This was just another chapter in their journey, one where communication and trust had guided them safely through. And as they left, hand in hand, they were reassured that their bond remained as strong as ever. Amy started to speak, but Ryan gently interrupted her. "If we're pushing limits, let's go all the way," Ryan said calmly. "We're both still in this moment, and he's waiting. Why not try something new and see how it feels?" Amy hesitated, glancing at the wall. "So, you think I should?" Ryan nodded. "I do. It's another experience we can share. I want to see what happens when you go ahead." Amy shivered slightly, but seemed to agree. "I think I want to try it too," she whispered. She gave Ryan a quick kiss, then knelt down once more near the wall. As Amy moved closer, Ryan observed her careful, calm demeanor. This time, her approach seemed more thoughtful, as if she was taking everything in slowly. Her focus was on the moment, and Ryan could sense that she was fully engaged in the experience. She glanced at the wall, where the stranger's face would have been if he were visible, almost imagining making a connection. But that, of course, was part of the unknown. Ryan's thoughts drifted. Here was his wife, usually so composed and thoughtful in everyday life, now simply caught up in an unusual situation. She wasn't worrying about what anyone else would think, only about the present moment and the feelings they were experiencing together. Amy's movements became more confident as time passed. Ryan noticed her attentiveness and her calm concentration. As the situation progressed, he found himself fully immersed in what was happening, his focus entirely on Amy's actions and the way they were both exploring something new together. The outside world faded into the background as the quiet moments in the booth became their only reality. Eventually, there was a light knock on the wall. This time, Ryan reacted quickly. "I think it's almost over," he said softly. Amy glanced at Ryan, her expression one of understanding. She gave a small nod, acknowledging the moment, and continued. It was clear that they both felt the intensity of the experience, and yet it remained grounded in the shared trust they had built together. When it was all over, they stood together in the quiet of the room. The experience, though unexpected and strange, was one that they had shared, and as they left the booth, Ryan and Amy knew that what mattered most was the connection between them, stronger than ever. Amy turned her attention back to the wall, as if imagining a face beyond it. Then, suddenly, the moment intensified and her eyes widened. She was prepared this time, but the intensity of the situation took her by surprise. Ryan noticed a soft sound in the room, and as he glanced down, he saw a small puddle forming beneath Amy's dress. It became clear what had happened, though neither of them had expected it. Ryan's mind raced, processing what he saw, but he stayed focused on Amy. Despite everything, she remained completely engaged in the moment, taking her time, her focus unwavering. Eventually, the situation began to calm, and the stranger on the other side of the wall withdrew, leaving behind a quiet sense of closure. Amy turned toward Ryan, noticing him watching her. Without missing a beat, she leaned forward, sharing a quick moment of closeness with him. The intensity of the situation caught up with them both, but soon after, they were ready to leave the small, dimly lit booth. As they exited the shop, the clerk gave them a friendly but knowing smile, wishing them well and encouraging them to return. Other people in the shop glanced their way, but Ryan and Amy were too wrapped up in their shared experience to worry about anyone else's opinions. Later that night, back at their cozy home, Ryan and Amy were more connected than ever. The shared experience had sparked something between them, and they spent the night enjoying each other's company, feeling as close as they had on their honeymoon. They laughed and talked well into the night, savoring the bond they had. In the days and weeks that followed, Ryan and Amy's relationship seemed even stronger. They felt more connected, more in tune with each other. While their earlier adventures came up in conversation now and then, it seemed that they were simply more focused on enjoying one another. Even when they watched movies or spent time together, it was clear that their shared experience had deepened their connection, making them more appreciative of the moments they had together. The couple watched a video compilation of women at glory holes. Amy had previously only seen videos of women giving oral pleasure, so this was new for her. While she found it interesting, it felt a bit uncomfortable and didn't quite fit into her usual preferences like the other videos had, although Ryan seemed to enjoy it more than she did. Overall, Amy felt closer to Ryan than ever before. She had shared her secret fantasy with him, and he accepted and supported her, just as he had with all her efforts to understand herself better. Ryan had always been a wonderful husband, and a great dad, too. After thinking it over a lot, Amy decided it was time to get rid of her pills. At first, she thought about making a big show of it in front of Ryan, but then she figured a surprise was better. She wanted to give her body some time to adjust before they took another romantic trip in the fall, where they could possibly try to have another child. She pictured a beautiful sunset view, a picnic of meats and cheeses, chocolates and sparkling drinks, and she was set on it. Over the next few months, Ryan noticed that Amy seemed to enjoy their intimate moments more. Almost every time they were together, she would pull away just before he finished, making it a playful occasion. She would give him teasing looks and make light comments about the timing of things. Ryan didn't think much about the pattern, just that their intimate life was fantastic, and he loved her deeply. Summer flew by, and soon it was time for the Carters' fall getaway. Ryan suggested a different location with a cozy cabin, but Amy really wanted their special sunset view followed by a romantic night in a small home, hoping it could lead to starting a family. She didn't keep track of her cycle closely, since she had just stopped taking the pill, but she thought their trip might align with her most fertile days. If it didn't work out, that was okay. She just wanted to give it a chance. The drive this time was enjoyable, although Amy found it hard to sit still in the car, even prompting Ryan to make a little joke about her fidgeting. Amy was struggling to keep her thoughts in order. Lately, all she could think about was being close to Ryan. This wasn't typical for her. She enjoyed intimacy, but being unable to focus on anything else was unusual. Even when she tried to think about different things, her mind wandered back and she felt distracted. The Carters arrived at their small home just in time. The weather was lovely, with a nice breeze and some interesting clouds in the sky. The horizon was clear, and the sky was full of beautiful colors, matching the bright fall leaves around them. Amy and Ryan enjoyed the view sitting on a blanket, sharing a meal and sipping on some sparkling juice. The atmosphere was calm, and before they knew it, they had finished their drink. As the sun set, they began to kiss, their gentle touches becoming more passionate. Ryan leaned in closer to Amy, but she gently held his shoulders and paused. "I really want you to be close to me," she said softly. "I've been thinking about it all day. I can't wait." Ryan was happy to oblige. Though there were nearby tiny homes and cars parked around, making it possible for others to see them if they wanted to, Amy wasn't worried about an audience at all. If anything, she seemed more excited than before. She sighed softly as Ryan held her close, clearly feeling ready for more. Amy reacted eagerly to Ryan's movements. Unlike her usual calm self, she was expressive this time, responding with enthusiasm. Ryan noticed her excitement and realized he might not last as long as he typically did. "Oh, wow, I can't hold back much longer," he said, feeling the rush of emotions. "Please, let it happen," she encouraged him. "I've been thinking about this all day." Up until that moment, everything had been perfect for Amy. She had arranged for this autumn trip to a place she cherished, and the weather was just right. She had managed to easily charm Ryan. Now, they were in a beautiful spot under the fading light of the sunset, hoping to start a family. It felt like the perfect moment. However, she hadn't shared her plan with Ryan because she wanted it to be a surprise. He had become used to her teasing him, so tonight he acted on that habit. Just when he reached an important moment, he pulled away quickly and moved closer to her. "Wait." She started to say softly, but he didn't hear her clearly, thinking it was just part of the moment. Realizing it was too late to change anything, she went along with what was happening, even as things took an unexpected turn. It wasn't how she had planned it, but she found herself responding in a way that felt instinctive. Looking ahead, she thought about the next day and how she could make sure to communicate better. It didn't feel like too much was lost. They could try again tomorrow. With a smile, she felt Ryan move closer and start to kiss her in a way that made her feel cherished. The evening wasn't going to be a burden. Instead, it promised to be sweet. They could always look forward to tomorrow. When the alarm went off on Saturday morning, it woke Amy from a vivid dream. As she opened her eyes, she felt a strange warmth inside, and she noticed Ryan still half asleep beside her. She considered skipping their hiking plans to enjoy the moment a bit longer, her body feeling alive with energy. What was happening to her? But no, the peak of the autumn colors wouldn't last long, and the timing of their trip was perfect for enjoying that beauty. This year's vibrant foliage would be a delight, and skipping the hike felt unwise. Today's trail promised a stunning view that they shouldn't miss. So she decided to stick to the plan. The excitement would make their evening even better. The hike turned out to be absolutely amazing. The leaves were bright and colorful, and there was a slight chill in the air. The sky was a brilliant blue. When they got to the overlook, the view was like a beautiful quilt made of deep reds, oranges, and yellows, with some green trees scattered throughout. It was truly stunning. After taking a lot of pictures, knowing their phones would never capture the real beauty of the place, the Carters enjoyed a picnic lunch while admiring the scenery below. For a little while, Amy was distracted enough to forget her feelings. But while sitting on a rock next to Ryan, she shifted a bit and suddenly became aware of her own thoughts. She realized she was watching Ryan closely. It was strange how her mind seemed drawn to him in that moment. "See anything you like?" Ryan asked with a playful grin. "Stop it," Amy replied, feeling her cheeks flush. Ryan leaned in to kiss her, and she felt a rush of emotions. Her hands moved toward him almost without thinking. The thought of being close in such a lovely place filled her with excitement. Just then, they heard a dog barking nearby. A group of hikers with a German Shepherd appeared on the trail about 30 yards away. They were close enough that if they had taken just a few minutes longer, they might have seen something unexpected. So, Amy and Ryan quickly straightened themselves and started packing up their lunch. It was no surprise to see other people enjoying the fall colors like they were. Good thing that happened now, Amy thought. If it had been later, it would have been a lot more awkward. Even though she tried to convince herself, she still felt a strong longing inside. Maybe a quick moment together at their tiny home before dinner would be nice. The hike was still great, but due to some unexpected paths and detours, it took them nearly 2 hours longer than planned. By the time they were finishing, they decided to use headlamps to help navigate as darkness fell in the woods. Ryan and Amy were seasoned hikers and handled the darkness well, but their long adventure cut into the time they had before dinner. They had to rush to shower and change, so their plans to spend time together before the meal had to be put aside. Despite the rush, they still arrived at the restaurant a bit late. As they drove past the adult store, which had a few cars parked outside, Amy broke her usual act of indifference. "Looks like they're getting busy already," she said casually. Are you thinking about stopping there on our way back to the tiny home? Ryan was surprised by her openness. I hadn't really thought about it, he replied quietly. She raised an eyebrow and looked at him curiously. Really? I thought that was something you were excited about. I figured you had already planned to take me there. He felt a bit embarrassed and admitted, Okay, fine. Of course I've thought about it, but I wouldn't want to pressure you into anything. Besides, you can't act like I'm the only one who thinks about it. I mean, he hesitated, you had fun last time. Amy smiled and laughed softly. All right, you've got a point. She shifted slightly in her seat, feeling her own excitement grow. Just so you know, I want to be close to you tonight. No ifs, ands, or buts. But I might be open to some playful fun on the way back if you're interested. Ryan tightened his grip on the steering wheel at her suggestion, feeling a rush of energy. Dinner was delightful. Amy kept the conversation lively, sharing jokes and slipping in playful comments about their evening. Her blue eyes sparkled with joy, hiding the fact that she was feeling a strong attraction to Ryan. Outwardly, she appeared relaxed and content, enjoying their time together. Inside, however, she wished for him to be more assertive. She even found herself daydreaming about finding a quiet spot where they could be alone. To distract herself, she enjoyed a few drinks, but she wondered if it only intensified her feelings. By the time dinner ended, Amy felt a bit tipsy, and her desire for Ryan only grew stronger. As soon as Amy clicked her seatbelt into place, she couldn't help but say with urgency, Let's go already. I can't wait to get home. Ryan laughed at her impatience. Oh, someone's feeling eager tonight, huh? He teased. Maybe we should take a detour first. How about stopping by that adult store for a little fun? Amy shivered at his suggestion, her mind racing. She was craving the intimacy they'd been planning for the night. But Ryan's idea was definitely intriguing. The thought of being playful at the store and spending some time together there sounded exciting. All right, she said, smiling. But remember, you promised we'd head home afterward. I can't wait too much longer. Ryan grinned. Deal. The couple drove to the shop, now much busier than during their last visit. As they entered, the familiar sound of the door chime rang out. The clerk behind the counter recognized them right away, greeting them with a big smile. Hey, welcome back, he called out. Let me know if you need anything. Ryan nodded. We're just going to watch a couple of movies, he said, holding up the tokens they'd saved from their last visit. Of course, the clerk replied, still smiling. You know where to go. Just holler if you need something. Inside, the shop had a few more people wandering around compared to last time, and Amy noticed the glances coming her way. But this time, she didn't mind. She felt more relaxed, partly from the fun atmosphere and partly from her own excitement. Without hesitation, Amy led Ryan to booth 3, eager to start their little adventure. As soon as they were inside, she quickly inserted some tokens into the machine and flipped through the options. When a scene played on the screen that seemed good enough, she wasted no time and sat beside Ryan, pulling him into an enthusiastic kiss. Ryan smiled at her eagerness and placed his hand gently on her leg, moving upward as they shared a quiet, intimate moment in the booth. Though the night had taken an unexpected turn, they both knew they were enjoying the excitement and spontaneity of the evening. Amy's anticipation for what was to come made it all the more thrilling for the two of them. As the couple settled in, it was clear that their connection and shared experiences were what made the night special. Whether at the store or later at home, they were fully in sync and enjoying each other's company. As Ryan gently touched the fabric of Amy's dress, she responded by shifting slightly to give him better access. The closeness between them was unmistakable, and Ryan could sense her excitement. Just as they were about to continue, Ryan noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. Through the small hole in the wall, someone had appeared, a quiet reminder of why they had decided to come to the store in the first place. Amy glanced over, noticing the presence, and was briefly torn between wanting to stay close to Ryan and the unusual situation they found themselves in. She smiled at Ryan, half nervous but clearly intrigued. I guess this is part of the reason we came here, right? She asked, looking for confirmation. Ryan nodded, his expression matching hers. I guess so, he replied quietly, knowing they had ventured into unfamiliar territory together. Amy stood and took a small step forward, her excitement visible. But before moving closer, She began to carefully slip out of her dress, surprising Ryan with her boldness. "What are you doing?" he asked, a little caught off guard. Amy grinned playfully. "Last time my dress got messy. It just seems practical to take it off and put it back on before we leave," she explained with a casual shrug. Ryan couldn't argue with her logic. She carefully folded the dress and set it aside, now wearing only her shoes and a pair of lacy blue undergarments. The air between them remained playful and light as they navigated the moment together, making sure they were both comfortable. Amy turned her attention back to the situation, feeling confident. Ryan stood behind her, tracing his hands gently along her back and shoulders. The connection between them was strong, grounded in trust and shared experiences. After a few moments, Ryan carefully reached for the waistband of her undergarments, and Amy glanced back at him, curious. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Just making things a little easier," he assured her softly, moving gently and making sure she was comfortable with each step they took together. The evening continued with the two of them focused on their connection, always mindful of the trust they shared. Whatever they experienced, they knew it was another chapter in their journey together, exploring new possibilities while staying grounded in their relationship. They both understood that what mattered most was the bond they had, and the rest was just part of the adventure they were sharing. Ryan gave a playful grin and added, "Besides, pushing limits seems to be something you enjoy, right?" Amy gave him a curious look but helped him remove her underwear before focusing again on the moment. As Ryan slid the blue lacy fabric down, he noticed how damp they were, almost as if she'd been in water. He was surprised by the intensity of her excitement, but focused on their shared experience. The confined space of the booth seemed to hold the atmosphere in, filled with a sense of adventure. He gently placed a hand on her back, feeling connected as they explored this new experience together. For a brief moment, the world outside felt distant as they remained absorbed in their own bubble. A knock on the wall caught their attention, signaling a change in the moment. Amy glanced at Ryan, her expression amused and calm, before returning her focus to their adventure. There was a playful energy between them, a mutual understanding that they were both in this together. Afterward, Amy turned back to Ryan, giving him a teasing grin. "Is this what you wanted to see?" she asked, still playful. Ryan, slightly out of breath, nodded, smiling back. "Yeah, you're amazing," he replied. Amy chuckled and placed a light kiss on his lips. "Don't get too ahead of yourself," she teased, reminding him to stay in the moment. Her fingers gently brushed against his arm as they shared a quiet laugh, fully engaged in the playful energy between them. For the next few minutes, they enjoyed the shared connection, exchanging light touches and kisses. The sense of trust and openness between them was strong, making the moment feel more like a shared adventure than anything else. Then, their focus shifted when something new caught their attention. Another stranger had entered the booth next to them, signaling a continuation of their experience. This newcomer was different, but Ryan and Amy's focus remained on each other, enjoying the connection they had built. The evening was less about anything external, and more about the trust and comfort they shared as they navigated this unusual experience together. In the end, it was their bond that made the moment special. Amy knelt down, calmly focusing on the moment, as the man in the next booth made his presence known. A quiet groan came from the other side as she leaned forward, using the extra space provided by the larger hole in the booth. Ryan watched, his thoughts racing as he saw his wife confidently handling the situation. He couldn't help but feel amazed by how composed Amy remained. This confident, professional woman exploring something so different from their usual life. It was a surreal experience for Ryan, and he couldn't take his eyes off her, though his thoughts were more focused on their shared adventure than anything else. Time seemed to slow down as they were absorbed in the moment. Amy, focused on the task at hand, continued until there was a signal, a knock on the wall. She remained composed, and Ryan admired how steady she stayed as the stranger finished on the other side. He quickly pulled her to her feet, embracing her with a strong kiss, their connection clear in every move. "You are incredible," Ryan whispered in her ear. "I'm so in awe of you right now." Though the setting was strange and unfamiliar, Ryan felt an almost overwhelming connection to Amy. His mind was filled with thoughts, ranging from excitement about what they were experiencing together to admiration for how much they trusted one another. Everything around them faded into the background as they focused on each other. Amy smiled at him, her expression one of playful energy, as she leaned in closer. Their bond was strong, built on trust and a willingness to explore together. Ryan's thoughts calmed, and he knew that they were both exactly where they wanted to be, simply enjoying the unique adventure they had chosen to share. Soon after, a new presence appeared in the booth next to them, and Amy reached out with a calm, steady hand, showing the same confidence she had all evening. Ryan watched quietly, knowing that whatever happened next, it would be another chapter in their shared journey, one filled with trust, communication, and connection. As Amy moved slightly, preparing to step away from Ryan, he held her close, pulling her hands to his shoulders before leaning in to kiss her again. She responded warmly, but when she pulled back, she felt a bit confused. Wasn't the whole point of coming here to try something different? She couldn't quite figure out why Ryan was holding her back when it seemed like they were both ready to continue with their plans. Ryan kissed her again, stepping closer to her, causing Amy to stumble slightly. She briefly felt the presence of the stranger from the other booth near her, but it quickly disappeared. What was Ryan doing? He seemed intense, almost impatient, but he wasn't letting her go. With his heart racing, Ryan looked at her, speaking in a quiet, almost shaky voice. "You're always pushing the boundaries," he whispered. "You came here to do that again, right? So, let's go further." Amy frowned, unsure of what he meant. They had already explored quite a bit together, so what more was he expecting? She felt she had been adventurous enough, but Ryan seemed to have something different in mind. Without answering her question directly, Ryan gently guided her backward until she felt the cool surface of the wall behind her. Then, he moved the bench closer and sat down, pulling Amy toward him. "Keep your legs straight," he murmured softly. At first, Amy thought Ryan wanted her to be close to him in this new position, maybe for a quiet moment together. But before she could ask or understand what he had in mind, she realized something unexpected. A different presence made itself known, and Amy quickly realized what was happening. Her heart raced as she stammered, "Wait, Ryan, hold on a second." She felt uncertain, caught off guard by the situation. "This isn't a good idea right now," Amy said softly, her voice filled with uncertainty. Ryan looked into her eyes, making deep eye contact, and gently placed a finger to her lips. "Shh," he whispered reassuringly. "It'll be okay. Don't worry. Everything's fine." Amy felt torn. Her mind told her this wasn't the right decision, but her body was responding differently. She had been feeling overwhelmed all day, and the tension was building up inside her. But she also knew there were risks. They didn't know anything about the stranger, and the situation felt too uncertain. Still, the intense emotions in the moment were pulling her in both directions. Before she could speak again, she felt the stranger's presence near her, and a wave of uncertainty and desire washed over her. "But Ryan..." She began to protest, her voice trembling. However, her thoughts quickly became clouded as the situation continued and her focus wavered. Ryan smiled at her, trying to calm her. "It's okay," he said softly. "We're fine. You're okay?" Amy was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, unsure of what to do but feeling the intensity of the moment overwhelm her. She wanted to stop, but everything happening made it difficult to think clearly. She tried to hold on to her thoughts but soon found herself losing control as the sensations became too much. Her mind raced as she struggled to stay focused. The sounds, the emotions, everything was blending together, making it hard to separate what was happening from what she wanted. She leaned into Ryan, her thoughts scattered, hoping for clarity. As the situation continued to unfold, Ryan gently stroked her hair, his words meant to comfort her. "You're amazing," he murmured softly, trying to keep her grounded in the moment. He knew they had stepped far outside of their usual boundaries, but he wanted to make sure she felt safe, even if the situation felt overwhelming. Throughout it all, Ryan's focus remained on making sure Amy was okay. He could see her conflicting emotions, and he wanted her to know that he was right there with her, guiding her through the experience. Ryan looked at Amy, speaking softly but intensely. "Do you know how incredible you are? You're letting go, and it's amazing to see." Amy was already deep in the moment, her mind barely able to focus. Her soft moans turned into scattered sounds of pleasure as she let herself go. Her body reacted, caught between sensations, and it was clear she was losing herself in the experience. Suddenly, her eyes opened wide, and a rush of intense emotions hit her all at once. A soft sound filled the room, and Ryan looked down, seeing the intensity of the moment manifest in Amy's physical response. She was completely overwhelmed, her body giving in to the feelings washing over her. She leaned heavily on Ryan, momentarily spent, her energy fading for a brief second before she slowly began to recover. After a few moments, Amy's breathing steadied, and she murmured softly, "So good. It's so much." Her voice was filled with a mixture of disbelief and pleasure, as if she couldn't quite believe what she had just experienced. As the moment began to wind down, Ryan could sense that things were reaching a conclusion. The stranger on the other side of the wall seemed to slow, taking his time as the tension built up again. Ryan spoke quietly, noticing the change. "I think things are wrapping up." Amy, still caught in the whirlwind of sensations, struggled to keep control of herself. She was torn between the intensity of the moment and the awareness of how far things had gone. Her mind raced, and though she tried to regain focus, she couldn't quite pull herself together. In a moment like this, the usual signals or etiquette could be easily forgotten. The stranger seemed lost in the moment as well, perhaps too caught up to remember how things were supposed to go, leaving both Amy and Ryan unsure of what would happen next. Neither of them could explain why things unfolded the way they did, but the moment was intense, and they were both swept up in the unexpected adventure they had shared together. It all happened so quickly. With a muffled sound from the adjacent booth, the stranger seemed to reach his limit. Amy's eyes widened in panic as she realized what was happening. "No, he's not stopping!" she gasped, feeling overwhelmed by the situation. She instinctively tried to pull away, but her body seemed frozen, overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment. For a brief, overwhelming few seconds, everything seemed to blur. Amy's body reacted, caught between the confusion and the powerful sensations that coursed through her. She could barely think straight, feeling everything at once, her eyes fluttered, her mind racing. As the moment passed, Amy's eyes slowly came back into focus. She looked at Ryan, who seemed just as stunned, standing there silently. "I can't believe it," she whispered. "What just happened?" She stepped away from the wall, trying to gather her thoughts, but the weight of what had just unfolded left her feeling shaken. She looked at Ryan, her voice rising slightly. "Didn't you see? I can't believe this. What are we doing here?" Ryan was speechless, caught between the intensity of what they had experienced and Amy's rising anxiety. He knew she was upset, but he also sensed the mixture of emotions she was grappling with. Amy's face was flushed, her breathing uneven. She was clearly upset, yet there was something else, an undeniable tension that neither of them could quite explain. It was a complex mix of feelings that left them both standing there, unsure of what to say next. Ryan could see that Amy was struggling to process everything. The confusion, the uncertainty, and the whirlwind of emotions hung in the air between them. They had crossed a line together, and now they needed to figure out what it meant for them moving forward. Ryan stood there, grappling with the intensity of the situation. He saw how upset Amy was, but he also noticed her deep emotional conflict. Wanting to comfort her and salvage the evening, he approached her carefully. "Hey, it's okay," Ryan said softly, pulling her into a gentle hug. "You're okay, we'll get through this." Amy pulled back sharply, her eyes filled with frustration. "Okay? How can you say that?" she asked, her voice strained. "I just let someone else, a stranger. I wasn't thinking." She paused, taking a deep breath. "Ryan, there's something else. I stopped taking the pill a few months ago because I wanted us to try for a baby this weekend. Make it special. But now..." Ryan's mind reeled from her words, realizing how serious the situation had become. His stomach dropped as the weight of the moment hit him. He hadn't known she was unprotected, and now the implications felt overwhelming. He felt his heart race as he processed what she had just revealed. Trying to keep calm, Ryan gently pulled her close again. "I had no idea, Amy," he said softly, "but we can figure this out." Amy sighed, her shoulders sagging as she leaned against him. "It was supposed to be a surprise," she muttered. "But now, everything feels like it's gone wrong." Ryan's mind raced, trying to think of what to say next. He knew they could let this moment ruin the night, or they could try to move forward together. After a brief silence, he spoke again. "Listen, we could spend the rest of the night feeling bad about what happened, or we could choose to get through this as a team." Amy looked at him, her expression filled with doubt. "And how do you suggest we do that?" Ryan took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "I know things didn't go as planned, but we're here together. You didn't plan for this, and neither did I. But we can't change what's happened. What if we focused on just being there for each other right now?" Amy hesitated, clearly unsure. "But Ryan, I'm just saying," he continued gently, "let's not let this ruin everything. We've had an intense day, and we can talk more about it tomorrow. For now, maybe we can just try to reconnect and see where the night takes us." She still seemed conflicted, but the tension in her shoulders began to ease a little. Ryan could see that while the situation was far from perfect, there was a chance they could find their way back to each other, even after everything that had happened. Ryan looked at Amy, seeing the hint of a smile creeping across her face despite the tension. "You have to admit that was pretty intense," he said, smiling. Amy let out a small laugh, her expression softening. "Yeah, it really was," she admitted. Ryan's grin widened. "So, you've already pushed your limits tonight. Why not keep going? Why let what happened ruin the rest of the night? We're still here, and we can make the most of it." Amy glanced down at him, her eyes widening slightly. "Wow, Ryan, you really are into this," she said, surprised. Ryan chuckled. "I know it sounds crazy, but I'm more into this than I expected. We have to go to the pharmacy tomorrow anyway, so why not enjoy tonight instead of worrying?" Amy looked unsure for a moment, then asked softly, "Are you sure? I mean, have we gone too far already?" Ryan shook his head, still smiling. "What's done is done, and we can't change it. But we can decide how to feel about it now. Why not have some fun and not let this ruin everything?" Amy hesitated for a moment, but then walked over to the bench and leaned on it, her expression turning playful. "Well then," she said with a grin, "I think it's time for you to stop talking and join me." Ryan moved to her side, still caught up in the energy of the moment. They embraced, feeling the connection between them as they focused on each other. Despite the unexpected twists in the evening, they were determined to navigate it together, finding their way through the confusion and intensity with trust and openness. The night wasn't what they had planned, but it became a moment of understanding between them, a chance to strengthen their bond in an unexpected way. Ryan felt the intensity of the moment, his mind spinning as Amy's words echoed. He struggled to stay composed, but the situation was overwhelming. Suddenly, through the hole in the wall, another presence appeared. Without hesitation, Amy reached out, reacting to the moment, her mind still racing from everything that had happened. As Ryan continued, it became clear that the night had taken them both far beyond what they had expected. Amy spoke, her voice steady despite everything happening. "Are you going to finish?" she asked softly, glancing at him with curiosity. "Or will you step back and let things unfold in a different way?" Ryan, feeling torn and confused, made a sudden decision. As the moment reached its peak, he pulled back, unsure of why, but driven by the intensity of what they had experienced together. The room fell quiet for a moment, both of them catching their breath. Amy looked at Ryan, a sense of disbelief in her eyes. "You actually pulled away," she whispered. She seemed both surprised and amused by his reaction. The night continued in a blur of emotions and unexpected turns. While they had come here without a clear plan, the evening had unfolded in ways neither of them could have predicted. As they processed everything, they knew that their bond and trust had been tested, but it remained intact. In the end, it wasn't about what had happened, but about the way they handled it together, navigating the intensity of the experience with trust, communication, and a shared understanding that they were in this together. The couple's adventurous evening was filled with conversations about the risks they had taken and playful banter about the possibility of a stranger impacting their lives. Despite the intensity of the experience, Amy and Ryan continued to explore their connection, pushing their limits together in unexpected ways. When they returned to their small home, they found themselves even more connected. They spent the night being close, enjoying each other's company, and reliving their shared experience. Their bond felt stronger than ever, and they continued to explore their emotions through deep conversation and intimate moments, all the while reaffirming their trust in one another. The next morning, instead of feeling regret or discomfort, Amy woke up with a sense of playfulness. She teased Ryan lightheartedly about the events of the previous night, and their connection remained strong as they shared another moment together before starting the day. After checking out and leaving their getaway spot, they stopped at a pharmacy to purchase Plan B, knowing it was the responsible thing to do. Yet there was no urgency to take it right away. They both felt the weight of their experience and spent the day reflecting on what had happened. The box remained unopened until later that evening, after they had returned home and resumed their normal routine, picking up the kids and settling back into their lives. Over the next few weeks, Amy and Ryan's relationship reached new heights. They shared some of the best moments in their marriage, both physically and emotionally, as they felt more connected than ever. They continued to talk openly, embracing a new level of trust and understanding. Their conversations remained honest, with both acknowledging the complex feelings they experienced during their adventurous weekend. When Amy's period didn't arrive on time, they tried to rationalize it, telling themselves it was just her body adjusting after coming off birth control. They remained calm and supportive of each other, knowing that whatever happened next, they would face it together. Throughout this time, their bond only deepened, built on a foundation of trust, openness, and shared experiences. They had learned that pushing boundaries could bring them closer, and that their connection was stronger than they had ever realized. But after about 6 weeks had gone by since that weekend, Amy started feeling dizzy, with sore breasts, and especially had morning sickness. They couldn't ignore it any longer. As she looked at her reflection in the mirror, Amy thought about how strange everything felt. Pushing their limits had made the Carters feel more alive. It had helped their relationship, too. It had brought them closer together. But was it worth what happened next, she wondered, placing a hand on her belly and looking at herself in the mirror. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to Infidelity Plus to stay updated with more captivating tales of infidelity and payback. Turn on notifications so you're the first to see our latest content.